Now, I feel this video gets a whole lot more interesting with the fact that the Buccaneers in my gameplay are playing the New Orleans Saints, and we kind of got some controversy with Drew Brees, and I think if their team is kind of up in the air on how they feel about him, that could mess things up for them. But at the same time, this video is about the Bucs, so let's talk about the Bucs. All right, first off, the Buccaneers got some new unis. So, we got a white on white look that looks clean. I mean, all these uniforms are basically just, the combination of uniforms is basically just combinations of how they looked in like the early to mid, and I guess even the early 2010s. I was going to say all throughout the 2000s, but even early in the 2010s, they still wore this look. But it's slightly modified from what they had before. The all white looks good. I like the red with the pewter pants, and I like the pewter jersey too. But the full pewter look kind of looks a little strange. So I don't know. Maybe try if they want to like rock like they have the red jersey with the pewter pants. That looks all right. Maybe if they want to use the pewter jersey, rock the white pants with it, so it's just not so strong. But we'll have to see how it looks on the field before I can for sure say anything. All right. So the Buccaneers went 7-9 last season. Here are the notes from last season. Ronald Jones' breaking tackle ability is way better than I thought. That was the first thing. That was kind of early. That was kind of an early in the season note, though, and it seemed to kind of tail off at the end, which was kind of funny. I thought he had a better first half of the season than the second half. The Giants game got stolen from them. I'm pretty sure they missed a field goal right at the end of the game, and I know Mike Evans got them like deep into field goal range, and it was just a very unlucky missed field goal at the end of the game, and they went 7-9, but you can basically make the record 8-8 because they're not a playoff team. I don't think 8-8 would have gotten them into the playoffs, especially in the NFC. I don't think that was good enough. I can't remember what the 6 seed record was, but I don't think that would have gotten them in. And you can basically just count it as 8-8 because the kicker lost them a game on like a 30-yard field goal. Like, come on. They had 2 consecutive games with wide receivers had multiple touchdowns in the first half. Against the Giants, Mike Evans had 3 in the first half, and then the very next game, Chris Godwin had 2 in the first half against the Rams. That was pretty cool. I don't think of Mike Evans much as a deep ball guy, but because sorry, I don't think of him as a deep ball guy, but he is not just jumping over people and catching passes. He's running by them and going. He's actually using his speed to his advantage, and I definitely don't think of him as a speed guy just with that size. Like, the only other guy that was as tall as him that could run that fast was Calvin Johnson. Now, I think Calvin Johnson's a crazy talent, one of the best receivers ever. I think Mike Evans is a very good receiver, but not quite as good as Calvin Johnson. But I mean, he is still a very good player, and Chris Godwin complimenting him is also awesome. I saw Brashad Perriman's tipped touchdown reception against the Seahawks for the first time today, and I thought that was really funny. That was an interesting play where Jameis just chucks it into coverage, and it's just like, yeah. And then it gets tipped up, and Perriman catches it into the end zone for the touchdown. That was cool. Third and goal versus the Cardinals at the end of the game. I don't know how Peyton Barber snuck into the end zone because it looks like the Cardinals defense actually played that really well, but they got lucky and stole a win there because you never know what happens. If he gets tackled in the backfield on that play, it goes to fourth and goal. We don't know how that game ends then. I gotta compliment Jameis Winston's maneuverability. Even though he's not on the team anymore, it is very huge. It was just very impressive. I'm sorry. Chris Godwin makes the spectacular catches while Mike Evans makes the contested ones. That's kind of a thing that I was looking at. I said this, which is strange. When I was watching, it was like, O.J. Howard looks good. He's not doing anything crazy. Cameron Brate isn't really showing up. But then later I found out that Cameron Brate actually had more receptions than O.J. Howard last season, which I was very surprised by. Okay, next thing. Brashad Perriman seems very important by the end of the season, but it's a completely different offense this season, so we'll see how that turns out. Ogunbowale, which that name is something terrible. He's like the third running back, but Really, they had him playing fullback late in the season, which I didn't know about, but I just started paying attention to it. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Then defensive notes really here. Vernon Hargraves was the defensive player of the week for the first 2 weeks of the season. Week 1, pick 6 against the 49ers. And week 2, they had the game against Carolina where McCaffrey took it to the outside at the end of the game on 4th and 1 or 4th and 2. And Hargraves stopped him short to secure the victory for the Buccaneers. So that was huge. Uh, Shaq Barrett's a beast. What a season. And I'll mention his stats later. So I mean, the stats are enough just to show that he's an absolute animal. Ndamukong Suh, oh my gosh, the open field running ability against the Rams on display was just so magnificent, and that was great. Wow, Levante David absolutely. I had not seen this play of Levante David. It's like a read option against the Titans, and Ryan Tannehill tries to keep the ball in the read option, and Levante David does not buy it at all. It just absolutely smothers him. I can't. That looked like one of the hits of the year. I couldn't believe I hadn't seen it before, but he absolutely destroyed him. It's something about this Bucks team, but luckily, if you're a Bucks fan, you're gonna start getting a lot more games and you're gonna get a lot more notice because there's a new guy in town. Yeah, I'm not sure who he is yet, but there's some new guys gonna make you guys popular. Uh, yeah, and the other thing is, since I mentioned Levante David, he's already 30, which is like, wow. I don't feel like I've even watched him that much for how talented of a player. I've always realized how good he is, but I just feel like I've never gotten to see him because he's in Tampa Bay and they don't get a lot of spotlight, which sucks. But I know how that is as a Bills fan for such a long time at least. Not now though. Now both of our teams will get a significant amount of spotlight at least for this season. Devin White too, love that combo. Levante David was like one of the first new age linebackers when you think about like transferring over from like the big, massive like 280-pound linebackers now down to like the 240 built guys, but almost look more like strong safeties rather than inside linebackers. But I really like that on the new age linebackers. So now they've got Levante David and Devin White next to each other as two new age linebackers, and it looks good. Also, no one freaking told me that Sue scored 2 touchdowns this season. That's incredible production, dude. You got to re-sign Sue just for that. And also, actually, Devin White also had 2 touchdowns. And it was strange because they both had, both players only scored off scoop and scores. So they both had 2 fumble returns for touchdowns. And next, there's a play where the Bucks defense gets an interception, so that was noteworthy. But I thought the funny part of it is it occurs in the Jags game, and it occurs with 6 minutes and 16 seconds left in the fourth quarter, and I think the Jags are down like 14. So if they score here, they're very close to the end zone at this point. If they score here, it's if they get the ball back, then they'll have a chance to tie up the game. But instead of scoring here, Gardner Minshew throws a pick, but it's on a read where he has a slant and then he has an out route, and both of the Buccaneers defenders covered the slant while the out route was wide open. Gardner Minshew reads it and throws it into the double coverage while the out route is standing wide open, and I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. So I mean, when I get to the Jags, I'm not expecting to predict a lot of wins for them, to say the least. The only time I saw a player more open this season and not get thrown the ball was when Derrick Henry had his touchdown pass for the Titans in the playoffs against the Ravens, I'm pretty sure, and Marcus Mariota was standing wide open and on the right side of the end zone, much easier than the tight end he threw it to. Okay. Then also the defense just forced a ton of turnovers, which if they can get that many turnovers and not have their offense turn the ball over a ridiculous amount, that would be very helpful. Like, I mean, that's obvious, but Jameis throwing that many interceptions, and I think he even fumbled a lot too. I didn't check the fumble numbers for Jameis, but I'm pretty sure he put the ball on the ground a lot too. So that doesn't help. If they can get the defensive turnovers, which they had a ton of, at least it seemed like it, they had all those fumble recoveries and they had a lot of picks. While Brady can protect the ball, I'm sure just the turnover margin by itself would be enough to win them a few games. And And now, speaking of Tom Brady, I know I usually focus on just teams, and if new guys come in, I don't really talk about uh, what I saw from one guy. But when that one guy is the starting quarterback, I figure it's kind of important. So he still can put the touch on the ball and put it wherever it needs to be. That's it's a great trait, and he usually knows where to go with the ball as well. That's also very important. He has less arm strength, obviously. It's not that crazy to realize this stuff. Uh, the thing that you're going to miss, though, is that you're not going to have as much chuck and pray offense as last season with Jameis. I mean, there is an extent to that, like back when the Bills had Ryan Fitzpatrick, quarterbacking them, where you could just, or it was fun whenever we threw the ball because it was like, wow, this thing could go all the way for a touchdown here, or the other team could score 6 points off of it. So, and that definitely was true for Jameis last season. So, I mean, there is some fun to it, but I mean, I think you're gonna like having Tom Brady and actually. Not getting as many highlight reel plays, but definitely scoring more efficiently and being a better team overall. Another note, just because I was watching Brady, can we get Josh Gordon to please play a whole season with someone this season? That would be absolutely amazing, just because I love him and if he could get a whole year in, it would be great. Do so much for him. Also, Brady maneuvers the pocket very well, but as I mentioned about Jameis earlier, Jameis maneuvers the pocket very well as well, but they do it in very different manners. So it's not. Jameis is doing it like scrambling and bumping into linemen and falling backwards and twisting and breaking out of sacks, and Brady's just slowly stepping in between each lineman to make sure that he gets his window to throw. And yep, so I wonder if Brady will force Leftwich and Arians to have flea flickers in the playbook, just because it seems like I wonder who in New England is so adamant that they must have flea flickers ready, because I feel like they run them almost at least 3 times a season up there. So I wonder if it's New England, or I wonder if it's Brady that wants them. I wonder if it's McDaniels. I wonder if it's Belichick. I wonder if it's Brady. I wonder who really loves the flea flicker that much that they're like, we need to have this ready at all times. So next, yeah, but besides that, there's not too much to say about him. I mean, he'll really help out as their quarterback. It's pretty obvious. Ronald Jones and Peyton Barber both had 6 touchdowns. Found out after going through the season that Peyton Barber actually is not going to be on the team next season. So that's kind of interesting. Ronald Jones and Ogunbowale, or whatever his name is, are the other 2 running backs, if you count him when Ogunbowale is going to play fullback, looks like, mostly at least. Then Ronald Jones is really the only 100% I can call a running back guy on the team that I can see before the draft pick they selected. And yeah, they tied for 6 touchdowns. I guess losing that Peyton Barber production may be more important than people deem. Next, just looking at the receptions numbers. So I was kind of surprised. Godwin beat Evans in receptions. I guess I wouldn't have been shocked, but I'm pretty sure it was almost by like 20 receptions, which seemed like a lot to me. But Evans may have missed one more game than Godwin did, because they both missed games during the season, but I can't remember. But yeah, it was Godwin, Evans, and Perriman was in here somewhere, but he's leaving the team too, so I didn't include him. And then Cameron Brate, and then Ogunbowale, and then finally we have Howard, the tight end. I'm blanking on his first name. OJ Howard, the tight end. Yeah, so the fullback guy that actually only had like 10, I think 10 carries this season, the guy listed as a running back, mostly playing fullback, actually had more receptions than the guy who, before the Gronk trade, may have been considered the number 1 tight end on roster. So thought that was a little interesting. Next up, I just looked at their kick return stats. It looks like they may need a change there, because it didn't seem like they were getting much going in the kick or punt return department. But, I mean, With Jameis at the helm, it was probably either a touchdown or an interception. So in the punt return department, yeah, you can't really blame them. But that doesn't make sense because if they're punting, the other team would be returning. So I don't know what I'm thinking there. Sorry for that stupid part. But yeah, they just back to the kick return point. They probably could look at some different returners or maybe some scheme changes. I don't really know. I don't know how you scheme stuff much. I mean, it seems like most teams are doing the same things in the kick return department nowadays. Uh, Sean Murphy Bunting led the team with 3 interceptions. Carlton Davis and Jamal Dean had a lot of passes defended. I think both of them had at least 15 plus passes defended, which were both very impressive numbers for me. Shaq Barrett, 6 forced fumbles, 19 and a half sacks, and 19 tackles for a loss. All three of those stats led the team. Obviously, very impressive stats for all of those. Also, Jason Pierre-Paul had 8.5 sacks, and he's still kicking around. For some reason, I feel like Jason Pierre-Paul is so much older than he is, but he's only 31, but he feels ancient to me for some reason. Next, tackles, 123 for Levante David led the team. Devin White also had 91, just mentioning that because those two were at the top and really no one was close to them. There's a lot of talent all over the defense, honestly. It seems like a lot of different, every week, it seemed like a lot of different defenders were making plays, which was interesting because we're obviously going to be focusing on what the offense is able to do this season, but it's definitely a talented defense as well. So this team could be very good. And like I said earlier, with what happened to the Saints, and if that team maybe gets a little like some infighting in the locker room, then I could definitely see. I don't know. I think they'll be able to get over it by this season, but there's definitely players that were very mad with Drew Brees' comments, and I think it's reasonable to be mad at Drew Brees' comments as well. All right, so injuries didn't kill them all at once. Just guys banged up for a few games at different times throughout the year, except Jason Pierre-Paul, who missed the first 7 games on IR, and he still had 8.5 sacks. That was super surprising to me. I was impressed with an 8.5 sack season for Jason Pierre-Paul at his age, just because I feel like he's been dropping off, but it may just be another one of those things where he went to Tampa Bay and I just lost track of him. Uh, but he missed 7 games and he got 8.5 sacks, which means that he played 9 games and he had 8.5 sacks. He was getting like a sack a game. If he played all 16, he could have been sitting at 14, 15, 16 sacks. And that combined, if he plays the whole next season alongside Shaq Barrett, that could be crazy. Okay, now let's talk about who they acquired. They acquired Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, and basically no one else of note. So this is really interesting. Obviously, I already talked all that I needed to about Brady, but the Gronk thing is so weird. I haven't even like really looked at the differences and how much weight Gronk had off from when he was playing football and whatnot. But also, I just wonder. I wonder. He was just injury prone for a while there, and I wonder if losing that weight could make him more prone to injury. I don't necessarily think it would make him a worse receiver. It may make him a worse run blocker, obviously, but in the receiving department, he would probably be the same. But if he's more susceptible to injury, I don't know. Also, though, they've got 2 talented tight ends already, so I, if he help, if he helps them, it's huge. But at the same time, if he doesn't help them at all, it's also not that big of a deal because they have two at least starting caliber tight ends in the available, easily available to them. Next, they lost 4 key players in my opinion, who are Carl Nassib, defensive end. He had decent numbers, but he didn't have anything crazy. I think he. I can't say this for sure, but what may have happened is he may have played early in the season and then got taken out once Jason Pierre-Paul came back for, because I'm pretty sure he was playing end and Pierre-Paul would have been playing end, and then obviously Shaq Barrett's never coming off the field, so yeah. So that's probably why he left, and they probably didn't see a third defensive end needing to get paid a decent amount of money, because I'm pretty sure he did get paid a pretty penny wherever he went. And then Peyton Barber left, and I said that was the 6 touchdown tie for running backs with Ronald Jones. So that's kind of important to me. Rashad Perriman played really well, and I don't know what kind of money he got where he went, but if I was Tampa Bay with how he played, I would think I would really want him back. But I guess they don't think the same. And then Jameis Winston, obviously, but I think everybody would say that Tom Brady is an upgrade over Jameis Winston. So we'll rock with it. Next up, we got their draft picks. They picked Tristan Wirfs first. Wirfs is an awesome offensive tackle. I think when I made my mock draft and I was like looking at all the tackle prospects, I was like, yeah, I think this guy's the best tackle available, and that's the one that I would want. He was either first or second, and I think he was he the one that was the crazy athletic freak? I think he is the one that's the crazy athletic freak. So also I really like that about him. Next, Antoine Winfield Jr. I liked him. I just don't know if I'm biased because his dad was Buffalo Bill. So like him. He's kind of short though. That's not great. 5'9". He's the same height as me. I can't imagine playing in the NFL. Uh, Keyshawn Vaughn, running back. He finds holes very well, but doesn't seem to have a lot of one-on-one moves in his arsenal. So that's I really it was weird to watch him. He always seemed to find where he needed to go, but besides like shaking off the shoestring tackle, I didn't see him either breaking tackles or shoving people off him or even juking a guy out. But he was finding open lanes, so I guess if you can follow your blockers, you're gonna be successful. So I don't really know what to think of him. It's kind of a weird spot for me. Tyler Johnson, he's a good player, and all the scouts have been saying that this is a great wide receiver draft class. So he goes in the 5th round, but he's still a very talented receiver for his fifth round selection. Next, they got a guy by the name of Khalil Davis, who's a defensive tackle. He's not bad, but he's nothing crazy. Just nothing really of note for me to say about him. I didn't hate the pick, though. I will say that. And then once again, 7th round pick linebacker from Temple, Chappelle Russell, if I said that right. He's not a bad player either. He just feels like he was playing like a step behind, which was kind of weird. He was like seeing stuff, and then it would like take him an extra second to react to it. So I liked his athletic ability and stuff, but it was just taking him a second to get there. And then, since they basically only have that one running back in Ronald Jones on roster, they decided that they needed to draft 2 running backs in this class. So, this is exactly how Calais and Calais Campbell is spelled, but I know that that is not how they pronounced his last name, but I'm just going to call him Raymond Calais. He's a running back from Louisiana. His burst initially was tremendous, and it was weird because they were talking about the fact that he was a sprinter, but like I just said, his burst was tremendous. So I don't know if in sprinting he was just getting out of the gate so quick that that would help him, but it didn't feel like once he was in the open field I was like, whoa, that guy's lightning quick. But he had a solid burst, like 99 acceleration to say the least, but only like 85 speed, which was weird. Not literally, I'm just using a metaphor basically. Alright, but now we gotta get to their opponents, and I'm gonna have to speed this up. There's not much time left in this game I was playing. Alright, so home opponents. Honestly, with what's going on with the Saints, I think they can win. I think they can beat Carolina both times, obviously. I think they can beat Atlanta both times with just the overwhelmingness. The defense was so good last year, and if you get Tom Brady playing effectively, I think it helps a ton. So, in division, Carolina both times, I think they can win both those games. Like I said, Falcons both times, I think they can win both games. And now, even with what happened with Drew Brees, like, I'm legitimately scared that those teammates of his are going to be like, who is this guy? And just, like, not listening to him and just having a weird relationship in that New Orleans locker room. And if that happens, I don't think so. So, as of today, I'm going to say they're going to go 6-0 in the division. All right. Then they're home against the Rams. Probably, jeez. they got a lot of tough home games. They got the Packers, Kansas City Chiefs, Vikings, and Rams at home. So the thing is, though, they're all home. So I actually like them winning 3 out of 4 of those games. I'm just not sure which one they're going to drop. So out of the Rams, Vikings, Chiefs, and Packers, they'll drop one of those, which means that puts their record up to 7-1. Here, I've got one more home game to mention. They've got to play the Chargers. Will be coming to Tampa Bay, and I think they'll handle the Chargers. I don't think the Chargers will be too much of an issue. Maybe the only thing that's interesting about that game is the fact that everybody was saying that Brady could want to go there, so that may have been a big deal. So we had 6-0 in the division, 7, 8, 9, 10-1 already. 10-1 with the Giants, Raiders, Broncos, Lions, and Bears to go. Wow, holy cow. They've got to go to all these places, but I don't really like saying that they're going to lose to any of these teams. I think they'll definitely beat the Bears. They'll definitely beat the Lions. They'll definitely beat the Raiders. Definitely, I feel like they'll definitely beat the Giants even. Like, wow, the way the home and away games are made up for them actually feels really lucky. I guess they could go to Denver and lose, though. But basically what I just picked here is that they're going to go about 14-2. Now, 14-2 without actually being able to have the full team meet up for the entire offseason for how much turnover it's going to be with a completely different quarterback, and he's going to have to learn a new system. And I know it's Tom Brady. What I'm thinking here, I really do want to say 14-2 with what I just looked at on their schedule and based off the Saints news from recently. But I just can't feel right picking a team to go 14-2. So I don't know where it'll be. It may actually be one of those Saints games, but it may also be and I said in this period earlier, Rams, Vikings, Chiefs, Packers, that group, since they were all at home, I was going to give them 3 out of 4. They may drop 2 out of those. They may drop 2 out of those 4. Excuse me. And if they do, that wouldn't be terrible because I'm still going to pick them to go 13-3. So I'll say 13-3. Final prediction for the Buccaneers. And yeah. So if you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching.
2020 president candidate.